Today, we are digging into a really powerful idea from the discipline code, and it's a big one. We're going to reframe leadership entirely. Forget thinking about it as some kind of unpredictable personality trait. Instead, think of it as an operating system, one that you can actually underwrite. So consider this your briefing on how to de-risk executive authority.
Okay, let's just cut right to the chase with a question for every single investor and board member out there. Seriously, what is the single biggest unpriced risk you're holding in your portfolio right now?
The answer, according to this framework, isn't what you might think. It's not market volatility, it's not some new competitor, nope, it's leadership instability. It's that unpredictable, inconsistent behavior at the very top that quietly eats away at value long before it ever hits the financials.
So here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll shine a light on this invisible risk factor. Then we'll introduce this idea of a new operating system for leadership. We'll get into the guts of its core engine, see how it scales, and then, and this is the important part, we'll draw a straight line from all of this directly to enterprise valuation.
All right, first up, this invisible risk. How do you even spot unstable executive behavior? Well, it turns out it's all about recognizing the symptoms.
So what does this actually look like on the ground? Here's a classic symptom: decision delay. You see, when a leader's behavior is all over the place, teams, well, they adapt. They start to hedge their bets. They schedule meeting after meeting just to get confirmation. And what everyone calls collaboration is really just caution. The whole organization is basically pumping the brakes to manage the leader's unpredictability.
And this is where it gets really interesting. That instability, it creates ripples, and everyone feels those ripples differently. The board, they just see it as market volatility. You, the investor, you feel it as unpriced risk. And the actual team doing the work, they're just plain confused. See, everyone is treating a different symptom, but nobody's looking at the root cause.
Okay, so if that's the problem, what on earth is the solution? Well, it takes a pretty fundamental shift in how we think about this. We have to move away from focusing on personality and start talking about installing a new operating system for leadership. And here's the difference in a nutshell. The old way, personality-based leadership, it relies on one person's willpower, their charisma, their presence. The problem? It's fragile. It shatters under pressure, and you can't scale it. The new way, a system-based approach, relies on installed control mechanisms. It's reliable under pressure. It scales beautifully. And, most importantly for you, it becomes transferable and, yes, underwritable. This quote right here just nails it. This isn't about telling leaders to try harder or have more willpower. It's about installing a system that makes their behavior reliable automatically, no matter how they're feeling or what pressure they're under. It takes mood and fatigue right out of the equation. So how do you actually install this system? Let's pop the hood and look at the engine that drives it all. It's called the core framework, and it's made up of 4 key levers for a stable executive OS. So the framework breaks down into 4 parts: compose, ownership, regulation, and energy. Think of them as the 4 cylinders in a high-performance engine. Together, they make executive behavior predictable, reliable, and consistent. Let's start with compose. Now, the key here is that this isn't about feeling calm. It's about behaving consistently, even when all hell is breaking loose internally. When a leader's external behavior is steady under pressure, they become readable. And a readable leader stabilizes the entire system, because now the team can execute with total confidence. Next up, ownership. This one is huge. It's a mechanism that locks accountability to the role, not the leader's mood that day. A leader with this kind of systematic ownership, they absorb the pressure. They take the hit. They don't push it down the chain. And what does that do? It creates absolute clarity and stops the blame game that just paralyzes execution. Then we have regulation. This is all about separating what you feel from what you do. It means treating your emotions as data, not as a directive. A leader who can do this can feel intense urgency, but they won't let that feeling short-circuit the decision-making process. It's what stops panicked reactions from being disguised as decisive speed. And finally, there's energy. And no, this isn't about drinking more coffee. It's about deliberately managing your cognitive bandwidth as a finite resource. An operating system that governs energy makes sure that the quality of decisions doesn't just fall off a cliff at 5 p.m. or at the end of a tough quarter. It's about being consistent over the long haul. Okay, so we've got the core engine, but how does this system actually hold up in the real world under serious stress? Let's see how it helps you scale discipline instead of chaos, both in times of growth and in times of crisis.
So for managing growth, the system gives you the CAV framework. That's coordinate, anticipate, and verify. Coordination stops things from falling apart as you get bigger and faster. Anticipation shifts the mindset from just reacting to thinking about second and third order consequences. And verification? That's what stops standards from quietly slipping as the organization gets too big to see everything. This is how you make sure growth actually strengthens the company, instead of just creating more instability.
And for when things go really wrong, the system has the hold framework. Harden, observe, lock, and defend. This isn't about just hoping your leaders rise to the occasion. It's about hardening critical habits so they run on autopilot under extreme stress, and locking them in so they become absolutely non-negotiable when the stakes are at their highest. It's a methodical way to build true reliability when you need it most.
Okay, this brings us to the most important part of this whole briefing. Let's connect the dots and draw a straight line to what really matters: enterprise value. Because this isn't some soft skill. This is a hard financial asset. So the whole value chain, it all starts right here, with the direct output of that core engine. Consistent, predictable, reliable executive behavior. This is the bedrock. And that consistent behavior is what makes a leader's authority real. But more than that, it makes it transferable. It decouples authority from one single charismatic person and bolts it onto the operating system of the entire organization. And right there, that's the immediate payoff. As soon as authority becomes transferable, you've massively reduced two of the biggest drags on any company's valuation: succession risk and key person exposure. Suddenly, the company's value isn't being held hostage by one individual's presence. Which leads us to the final inevitable result. By systematically de-risking leadership, by making it a reliable and transferable system, you create a direct, tangible, measurable uplift in that company's enterprise valuation. You've literally turned an unpriced risk into an underwritten asset.
So, I'm going to leave you with this one question to think about as you look at your own portfolio. The leadership teams you've invested in, is their authority based on the sheer force of their personality, on their presence, or is it a reliable, repeatable, underwritable system that will keep running long after they're gone? Because the answer to that question has a very real number attached to it.